So you're ready there, Kush? Yeah. So my name's Doug Beckett. I'm with the Energy Transition Group and the Prince George Electric Vehicle Association. So welcome to this month's Energy Transition Group meeting. And we have Ken Rowell from the College of New Caledonia in Prince George to present tonight. Ken is a mechanics instructor who's organized and created an electric vehicle mechanics program at the college, and he's going to talk about warranty work and after warranty work from people who aren't dealerships, but I guess also dealership mechanics, because they also have to be trained. Okay, thank you. Take it away, Ken.
Sure. Is my mic working there? Can't hear myself. Hi. Glad to be here. So I'm guessing this is a group of EV owners. Is that what I've got here for the most part? EV owners? Yeah, okay. I'm going to talk about both EV and non-EV because the problems that EV have highlighted are issues we've had for 30 years in the industry. I started repairing cars. I was just figuring it out just a minute ago. It was like 37 years ago. And so I've seen some change, but you know, the thing that kept me in this industry all these years is the constant change. It just keeps it exciting, keeps it new, keeps it changing. I'm not one of those people that could do the same job day after day for more than a couple of days anyway. The other bit that I really love is just the challenge of a problem, the diagnostic process. And so my career has been spent mostly in the diagnostic field. That firsthand level experience, it's interesting because as governments policy changes, Skilled Trades BC is our governing body of apprenticeship, as those people change, I see it from a different angle than many people. And I'm often reading articles on modern vehicles or things like this, and I'm finding them, well, completely wrong or simply not related to what I see in the field. I think if we're thinking about energy transition as the energy transition group, we have to start talking about the planned obsolescence of automobiles. The carbon sink that we put into a car, and I don't care if it's an EV car or an ICE car, you're still 5 to 12 tons of carbon to build this thing. You guys remember the cash for clunkers back? Well, the math's out on that. Total disaster. $1.5 billion, I think we spent on that. Automotive techs could have told them. We could have said, this is what's going to happen. The people that can't afford a new car are going to keep the old one longer because you've artificially inflated the price of used cars. On top of that, the Canadian dollar meant that all the cars from Canada were going to the States anyway. And so what really happened is people kept cars longer because you actually end up a social economic issue. If you can't afford a brand new car, you're not really doing any good. The next thing that was happening is, remember the cars from the 90s, early 2000s? Those things were awesome. They were some of the best cars ever made. When I had my auto shop, we would tell my customers and truthfully tell them that 15 years, 400,000 kilometers, we'll keep that car on the road for you, provided you do the maintenance required. It was doable. Not with every brand and not with every make, but with a lot of cars we could pull that off. And the customers loved it. To me, cars are freedom machines, right? So I don't think the idea that people don't want to move or don't want to have transportation of some sort is feasible. Mass transit works great in the cities, but I grew up rural. And I don't know how you would get from Cheslada to my friend's place down Utsa Lake without some sort of mode of transportation. Did have a horse, but that's an all-day project. Right? I just tossed some slides up here, just more as a background. I don't need to talk to them much. These are the two programs I'm responsible for now. So I started out in a Ford dealership in Burns Lake. I then went to a Ford dealership in Prince George. And then I opened my own shop and I ran that for 15 years. And now I teach. I teach in the automotive service technician program, but I'm the coordinator for both those and the auto body program. We were mentioning an EV conversion, and that's an interesting thing because it's future proofing, isn't it? Right? What we're talking about is a car that's not necessarily obsolete or can be made non-obsolete. I'll find my way around. There's my little shot on a fairly reasonable day. Doesn't look like things have changed too much from the, I'm going to say that's in the 50, 54 or something like that there. Things look similar. That's probably where the similarity ends. Of course, they didn't use hoists back in the day. They were very rare. Every job requires a hoist now. It makes it much more difficult for a technician at home or someone working on their own vehicles. Back in those days, everybody worked on their own cars, right? I tell my students when we talk about ignition that flip the glove box open of that old Ford there, and you're going to find a nail file and a book of matches. And that person, they may not smoke and they may not have long fingernails, but they needed to set the points and clean them, right? And so, you know, you worked on your own car back in the day, right? But you could keep that thing going until the wheels fell off of it. Along came this guy. Actually, this guy was long before the 50s. This is 100 years ago. They credit this guy as being the brain behind planned obsolescence. Called Al Sloan, worked for General Motors. He was the CEO at the time. So in a way, you could say the car company started this idea. That what we need to do is get people out of that car long before that car is finished. We can do it by making it fancier, making it cooler, making changes, marketing, whatever it takes, or simply don't make it last so darn long. So for 100 years, the car company's been doing pretty good at this. In fact, they've made it an art form to the point where you would take a team of very impressive lawyers to ever find proof of it. But then why in today's day and age are people trading cars that are 3-4 years old? So in order to get over the back to the cash for clunkers, you know what people did? They traded in those 1990s cars. We had a 90s Civic, and that thing got around 50 some miles a gallon. You know what they traded them in on? Ford Explorers, right? You know, not many of those left on the road, you know, considering they made millions of them, right? Exploders, we called them in the industry. And so now you're trading in this vehicle that has, yes, it's got NOx emissions, for sure. It's got some hydrocarbon emissions. You know what was pretty low in those cars was CO2 emissions. They didn't burn much darn gas, right? For something that's putting out huge numbers of CO2. The better you make an engine run, the more CO2 it creates. Because that's perfect combustion, isn't it? I tell my students, level 3, we spend on emissions. There's some 90s cars for you. We spend on emissions and say, you know what? You figure out how to scrub those CO2 emissions out of the exhaust, you've made yourself a billionaire. I've even had a couple go on further into university and take chemistry to think harder on the subject. But the fact is we can't at this point. And that's where the transition to electric comes in. In gas, we don't create those CO2 emissions. Now I grew up rural, right? What do I care about smog? What does a northern British Columbian care about smog? We don't live in Los Angeles. Right? That's our NOx emissions. That's our catalytic converters. That's our hydrocarbon emissions. Okay, those are city problems, right? But CO2 is a country problem. It affects heavily. I'm of that age, the perfect age, really, to remember all the way through from those cold winters we used to have, right, to what we have now. You know, there's nobody living in the north of my age that can't say climate change isn't real. It's there, it's happening, and it's happening, well, from the cities, really. You know, it's happened to them, right? And so when the farms are failing and the fires are wiping out the south side where I grew up, right? My parents' farmstead is gone, burnt up in the fires of, what was that, 2018? Yeah. Well, there's our 1990s vehicles, you know. I think the The what did I put down? The embodied carbon in that car was about 4 tons. You know, by the time they built that thing. My son's still driving one, by the way. He loves it. We were just talking camshafts the other day for his brick. We call them bricks, right? It should have an EV conversion. It would be such a perfect chassis for it. There's this giant, huge flat floor in the back of that thing. The other day, my sister-in-law, I guess we call Mel, came over and had her Corolla at 300 and some thousand kilometers of absolutely horrible maintenance. Still bombing along. This one's turned to 400,000, right? I think these cars were built different. In a way, they were, because these were world cars. Toyota wasn't selling these to the North American market. They were selling these to the entire world. And the entire world wanted a car you could repair and you could keep. Right? We don't do that in Canada. We want the next bell and whistle. We want to do it 4-year turnovers. You know, I've talked to government officials in the city fleets, and the government fleets, 160,000 kilometers, get rid of it. That's done. Right? So there went that sunk carbon back into the atmosphere, re-smelt the metal, you know, melt that thing down and make a new car out of it. You know, I read a lot about the green electric car. And it has great potential to be these cars. They're simple, dead simple. You know, people often ask me as a technician, you know, is it going to be hard for you guys to transition to these electric cars? No, it's easy. This is way easier than semi-autonomous LiDAR systems. I can explain an electric car. It's a 1-week part of level 4. It's just powertrain. It's real easy. Plus, it's changing regularly, so my students love it. You see, when I started out as a technician, I walk into my first job out of trade school, my level 1. And level 1 is brake, steering, suspension. They figure that's what the new guys are going to be doing, just that basic, you know, hands-on mechanical work. I was a computer nerd. I had an Apple IIc. I bought it with my trap line and 4-H. But anyway, kind of like computers. And I walk into the dealership, got a bunch of old guys getting ready to retire. 1987, Ford brought out fuel injection. The heck with that stuff. Those guys know how to deal with that. And they're like, Ken, here's the books for that fuel injection. Go learn that crap. And that's what happens in our industry is the new guys actually start on what's new. So when they see hybrid and electric powertrain, they're right there. They know that the old guys retiring don't need to learn this stuff and probably aren't going to. It's up to them. But that's perfect because that makes them instantly valuable in that company. And so, yeah, when they say EVs are going to be difficult to repair, I'm like, bring it on. Great. That's exactly what we love to do. Learn new cars. Right? But the car companies cheat. Mentioned planned obsolescence. That car was meant to be fixed. This car was meant to be fixed. That wasn't. That was meant to get built. Do you know what we're looking at here? In EV people? It is an EV. I think it's a Y. These are giga castings. Front one, rear one, floor is actually just extruded aluminum welded together. You break that, it's done. You cannot repair it. Remember, I also take care of the auto collision side of things in our college. These don't get fixed. You just replace the car. The battery, if it gets dented, replace the car. It's not repairable. It is totally repairable. If it was built repairable in the first place, parts were available. Next problem we're having is the parts. Has anybody had a breakdown recently? A newer car? Yeah, how long? Well, for the repair. Okay, that doesn't count. Yeah. Right, yeah. For Tesla, yes. Yeah, no, and then that's lovely. And that is largely because of ARA, Automotive Retailers Association, and AIA, lobbying the governments. In Canada, right to repair is not law. voluntary. Kind of the unwritten deal is, if you don't provide this information, we're going to make a law. And it was going along really well until Tesla came along, and at first Tesla would not give up the manuals or the links. At first it was a 1334 cable, and now it's wireless connection to a Tesla. They didn't want to give that up. They still haven't given up the parts. So if you want parts, you get it yourself. Yeah. You know why they're changing it? Napa Auto Parts has gone to China and sourced parts from the original suppliers to Tesla. Okay? And so now they have a competitor. Until then, if I, in my little independent shop, have a Tesla come into my shop, I tell the customer what they need and they have to go get it. It's a bit like taking a steak to a restaurant. That's half my profit. So I have to double my door rate. Otherwise, I can't stay in business. I can't pay my technicians. Technicians, by the way, are unicorns. These are people who don't mind bashing up their hands, getting dirty, but yet they could work in the IT field in a heartbeat. Right? And you know, when you take a car, this one or any other car, I don't want to pick on EVs. EVs have some amazing properties, let's call it, that are going to, I think that is the propulsion system of our future. There's no way around it. And I have no problem with EVs. In fact, I kind of like them. The problem I have is non-repairable. I don't care. This isn't just an EV problem. This has been for my entire career. When I first started at Ford, we had a problem with E4OD transmissions. We called them E409s. They were in all the heavy-duty pickups. Heavy duty for an automotive guy means a 250 or a 350, a one-ton truck. They were so bad. 11,000 kilometers, 12,000 kilometer warranty repair. We refused to fix them as technicians because it made us look bad. We wanted replacement units, right? They ran out. They shut the plants down and brought the transmissions off the line for us to put into customers' cars. That hasn't happened in 20 years. They will not shut the line down. GM has a problem with their engines right now. Those are customer cars sitting on the lot, making payments month over month over month, 6, 8 months without your vehicle, waiting for parts. I can't remember what the Hyundai was, but it came off of one of my feeds. We call it intergalactic back order, is what it's called. You call up the parts department, it's like, when are you gonna get that part? Intergalactic, man. No idea. They may not even make it. They may not want to make it. On top of that, this truck, 2020, 2022, could be a 24, but no, going by wheels, I'm going to say it's about a 2022 truck sitting on the lot for 6 months, making $1,000 a month car. Well, more than $1,000 a month car. Yeah, but waiting for its engine. They have a crank bearing problem in them right now, and GM doesn't have any engines. And you know what? They're not in any rush because you know what that guy does? He goes and buys another one. Kind of works, eh? Because what's he gonna do, right? In that truck, we have an architecture we call Global B. There's about 50 computers in this thing. They're all networked together on various different networks. And back to the IT guys, cars, we have LIN bus, CAN bus. We have 4 speeds of CAN bus. We have most networks. We have Ethernet networks inside the battery cases, Wi-Fi battery modules, really cool. And what's an IT guy got? Ethernet, half a dozen computers in an office, easier than what my guys have to do. Right? These kids have to learn how to repair these network systems fast, efficiently, accurately, right? But let's say we need something. Let's say the body control module is my fault on this thing, and that's why it won't run. GM sends them blank. All car companies send them blank. Why would they make a different module for every car, right? You send it blank, we put the software in it, okay? Well, maybe it's off warranty. New BCM for that vehicle is $2,500. A used one is $400. I'll put a used one in it, and that was fine up until 2020. In 2020, they've in-locked the modules. We can no longer do that. We have to buy the new module from GM for software reasons. Nothing to do with hardware, right? So the fact is us in the aftermarket, we found workarounds. I'll show you a picture of one of my students doing it here in a minute. That's planned obsolescence in overdrive. This started happening around COVID. The first thing that happened is they honestly couldn't get parts. To be fair, the factory shut down, right? Then they went, dang, this is all right. Let's really reduce our inventories. Let's just make more money. And on top of that, they're selling more cars. They're going obsolete faster, right? Over-the-air updates, obsoleting cars. Only a matter of time. You see, the car companies, and I've talked to some car company executives and car company representatives, and they've told me they look at the cell phone industry with awe. Those guys have got it figured out. Nobody even owns the dang things. They just on a plan and they roll them over every couple of years. That's what they want. $100,000 cell phones. This is not sustainability, right? And I'm picking on a truck, but this could be an EV. So in that EV, there's a connector. It's called the OBD2 connector. I'm going to have to skip ahead because I literally threw these. Oh, come on. This is an OBD2 connector. It has a lock on it because they do have locks on them, digital locks. We recently changed the Competition Act in Canada. It's no longer illegal for me to break that lock. Not that it ever stopped us. To me, that's ethical hacking, right? To get into these things and work on them, I had to do illegal operations, right? The way they make it legal is interesting. The car companies and in a national automotive, oh, I'm gonna find the actual name. I don't want to get it wrong for you guys. We call it NASDAF, National Auto Service Task Force. Takes my information, right, and gives me a code. And what I have to do is provide proof that the customer owns that car, because you don't want people stealing your cars. So if anybody had access to this, it would be a problem. With that proof, it'll allow my equipment into that car. So that's the legal way of doing it now. And now there is a way. Guess what though? Not in Canada. Thankfully, NASDAQ, which is a US organization, is accepting Canadians, right? So I can do it, but I have to pay $300 to an agency in the States to keep my license. It seems wrong. It seems like there should be a Canadian version of this thing, but it's worked out with the car companies. At the same time, my scan tools, my equipment, my laptops and software that I use to communicate with these cars are registered with Auto Authority. And that way, when I plug into that vehicle, I get my Wi-Fi signal, which I have to hotspot my phone when I'm driving cars around the city. It has to see my Wi-Fi, know it's me, and I'm allowed to talk to these cars. And that's good. That's really good, because up until then, we were locked out legally. We found ways. Thanks to the Chinese and Ukrainians, I owe them a lot because they are the best hackers. It's unfortunate they're busy fighting a war because now they backed off on their hacking work, and then I can't get new software from some of the companies I used to deal with. The other thing is the parts themselves. So we talked about the parts just aren't there. The parts are digitally obsoleted or just plain obsoleted. Now we decide not to make them anymore. So as a rule of warning, when you're talking to people, they're saying, hey, you know a thing or two, because you guys are car people. Otherwise, you wouldn't be into EVs probably. They're an early adopter thing. When people ask you what to buy, you buy the one they made a trillion of. Buy the Corolla, not the Lexus, because they will obsolete all the parts on the Lexus. You see the Lincoln brands, the Cadillac brands, the Lexus brand, the Infiniti brands, the Genesis brands. These are test beds. Those people never keep a car over 2 years. Throw all the weird and interesting things you want to try in those. And if it doesn't work out, obsolete it. Not a problem. I mean, it is a problem, for the environment, but it's not a problem to the car company. Carbon has no price. It doesn't matter. The parts themselves, have you ever had your mechanic come to you and say, you need this, and it's going to be $3,800 because it comes in this, right? If you haven't yet, you will, all right? Because this is the norm. You have to understand that the car companies only build maybe a third to a half of the car. The rest they purchase. Okay? So you take a Ram truck. Ram truck, Dodge. Well, it's not Dodge anymore. Stellantis. Stellantis Ram truck. Fiat Ram. The front differential is made by ZF in Germany. As an assembly, it goes to Ram. I keep calling them Dodge, but it's not Dodge anymore. They throw it in the truck. There's a clip inside the left front intermediate axle that fails on these things, right? And literally that axle, you would have to cut it apart to get it apart. This piece is probably worth 40 bucks, okay? It's a $2,600 front axle assembly. That's how it comes. Okay? So the more expensive we make the vehicles, the more expensive we need to make the repair. Don't think this isn't planned. You know? And again, the car companies have a lot of lawyers, billions of dollars, and they will say, no, there's no planned obsolescence. I don't know what they're talking about. Ken's full of it, right? I know that I repaired a battery the other day. It was cut apart battery for a thermistor. You know how much a thermistor's worth? You're into electronics, what do you figure? 15 cents? Yeah, yeah. $12,000 battery. That's how it comes, right? These are some service advisors I follow. And I just kind of asked them, I said, show me your biggest tickets. 2 of them are EV, 1 is not, just to be fair. Ioniq 5 battery, 48,182 US. The car isn't worth that. This is not uncommon. One of the first Lightnings that came into Prince George Motors here, I always have dealership techs in my class. It's great because things will happen at their dealerships. I'm like, oh, sweet, let's go check it out, right? Yeah, I centered it, dented the case. Battery's right off. Did it hurt the battery internally? Did it hurt any cells? We don't know. No one's willing to take that risk. Same price, right around $50,000. What was that one? Chevy Volt. That's an old car. It's a Chevy Volt is kind of a series hybrid. It's kind of a cool system built like a train, right? Engine, battery, motor. Whatever happens with powertrain, as I tell my student, electric powertrain is staying. Propulsion, there's some things that are up in the air on that. Probably it's electric. Maybe it's hydrogen, but I doubt it. Right? Maybe they get better with cleaning ice. I don't know. I do know one thing, you're not going to get regen any other way. You need to have an electric propulsion system to get regen. That's 50%. Do you know how much they will put into a vehicle to get like 1.5% CAFE standards, CAFE, corporate average fuel economy, right? They'll spend millions to get that. So are they going to give up on 50%? Every single powertrain is going hybrid eventually. And then probably electric and hybrid. There'll be demand for both, and car companies supply demand. They go out there and put products in front of people and see what sticks, right? Toyota proved hybrid sticks. Everybody's going to jump on that, right? Whether we like it or not. But don't worry, people only keep them 3 or 4 years, so you know. So you're going to be selling an electric very soon. So that is actually a very small battery. It's an awkward thing to change because it's T-shaped. So our lifting cables don't fit it. You have to build yourself a little frame to lower that battery out of there. I didn't see labor. I saw the battery. The coolant's 16 bucks. Got to make sure you get that on your $30,000 battery. It is liquid cooled, which is, you know, a benefit. Ask a leaf owner. Right? This, on the other hand, this $30,000 ticket, that's just a diesel. Somebody put DEF in the fuel. DEF is diesel exhaust fluid. It's for clearing the selective reduction catalyst of its NOx. Takes that nitrogen oxides and turns it into nitrogen and oxygen. So you put it in your fuel, you take out your fuel system. And every one of those parts is bought by from Bosch or Delphi. The car companies didn't buy it. I'm trying to figure out what this is. Thinking it's a Ford. It says low pressure turbo. So I'm thinking it's a Ford, just because of that term there. But it could be any of the new diesel trucks. And this is not uncommon to be a $30,000 ticket on those two. But they're $120,000 trucks. So I guess people will pay it. I missed some others. I'm where I was supposed to be. So I talked a little bit. Oh, I should point out, gigacastings, non-serviceable batteries, those are CV transmissions. Every darn thing out there these days has a CV transmission. It has a segment belt. It's not really a belt. It's little segments held by two little straps. As long as they stay on their straps, everything's good. As long as they don't wear too much, they're fine. As soon as they wear a bit, the transmissions start having problems. These transmissions seem to not be making 200,000 kilometers. They're in everything. Nissan's got serious problems with theirs. Subaru has big problems with theirs. Honda's done a touch better with theirs. Toyota did okay. Ford was going okay, and then they went dual clutch, and that was a disaster. But that CV transmission, they're $10,000 to $15,000 for little cars. So now they're saying the car's 200,000 K max. People just don't spend that on those cars. They buy a new one. They want a new one anyway. It's got a bigger screen, right? It's got more bells and whistles. It's got cool things, heated seats maybe, right? But yeah, so this here, this is in our shop. This battery pack here, when they first came out, they were about 7,000, pretty cheap. They're down to about 5 now. That's a Toyota hybrid, a non-plug-in hybrid. So nickel metal hydrate battery. Nickel metal hydrate batteries are kind of cool, but in a non-plug-in hybrid, you don't draw them down very much. You see, you accelerate, they pull down maybe 10%. You use the regen, it comes back maybe 10%. And you're just bouncing them along, right? You guys are battery people, so you probably follow me better than others might. And so what'll happen is one of those cells goes out about 200 millivolts from the others over time because of that short cycling. It's kind of like plugging your EV in at home all the time. In the old days, the early EVs, they would unbalance the batteries. But there's no real big deal because you could just go discharge it, use a fast charger. You could rebalance it yourself. There's no way to do it. So at first, Toyota dealers were said, oh, the battery can't go dead. And it's true, nickel metal hydrate has very slow self-discharge rates. Not as slow as lithium, but slow. And then right away, they're calling them off the car trailers with dead batteries. What are we gonna do? So they made the charger unit, this one here, to charge them. And Toyota bought one for Western Canada and sent it all the way around the dealership so they could get their cars charged up so they could sell it. The company that made it went one further and said, hey, why don't we just build an entire bench to fix batteries? So the rebuilders bought these. So now you can buy a battery from Dorman, Green Energy, a couple other companies. And what they've done is, depending on the car, 29 to 36 cells, whether it's a Camry or a Prius or what they've done is the neat thing with these batteries, the thing that fails is just that one cell. It'll go high resistance. So with this thing, I can do a load test on each individual cell and just see if anybody fails. Right? I can also check resistance of every cell and pull that high resistance cell out. So if I have 2 batteries, I can fix another 30 batteries. Right? So I tell everybody I meet, find a Prius for sale because it needs a battery. I want it. Because I fix those for free, right? And I have probably 4 more of those. I have a bunch of Honda IMA batteries as well. If you happen across one of those, it's the same deal. So what I've done here is I've run my own BMS. These little red wires here are hooked up to the individual cells, and I can monitor it, and I'll do deep discharge and recharges, and I'll let it run for days. And often that fixes the car. So I can actually, there's a harness, looking for it. And I can see a piece of it right here. There's a harness I can actually put in the car and do it in car. Run the car's fans to cool the batteries during the cycles, and just park the car outside. A couple shops in town now are doing that as a service for those vehicles because that is how you keep those batteries alive. So I brought this picture though mainly not to get myself off track, but to point out that hey, we fix these things. Given the opportunity, given the possibility to get in there and fix them. One of the other things that happens to these things is the contacts on the cells corrode. The reason they do that, next time you're in a Prius, driver's side, right next to the snowy children's boots, you'll see an air inlet. Pulls the air in and sprays snow and everything all over the battery connections. They will always make design errors, and they will always make design errors that show up the most in the north because they don't expect us. I brought it out because I wanted to point out that a level 1 automotive technician, entry level, they can do this. It's not hard work. It's monotonous work. It's not my favorite work because it's over and over and over again. Check the cell, test, move to the next cell. So, but it's very doable. The beauty of this is, and you could do this yourself. You could do this with a hobby charger. It's just that this does all of them at once and it does it automatically. You could sit there and bring all those cells within balance with a light bulb and a hobby charger and take you days, but you could do it, right? This is one of very few Focus EVs. I have a Focus EV and 2 Leafs. I had 3 Leafs, but we took one apart for pieces. We made trainers out of it and dug in all the bits and pieces inside it. And so one of them is no more. Well, it is. It's just spread throughout my shop. And our students are learning how to deal with these things day one. So don't let anybody at a dealership say, oh, the aftermarket doesn't know how to deal with them. They absolutely do. Because I would say I've had a student from every shop in town by now. So if not the old technician, the young kid does. What do we got going on here? Doug, you talked to me one time about, hey, how do I deal with a Leaf without a heater? Well, we had a couple of Leafs. We had the 2 we had. We had the one we took apart. Well, the one we took apart had great cells, but it was unheated. Okay. And so, you know what? Let's steal its cells and put it in the heated one. That's what we're doing here is swapping the cells. That's the rear set of cells that goes under the seat. That's the central disconnect you're seeing there. Here's some insulated tools right there. And you'll often hear that mechanics don't like expensive tools. That's not true. We love toys. And not only do we love toys, the more expensive, the higher the barrier to entry. This competition, right? So we love it. Give us expensive tools. $1,000 socket set, you bet. We'll take that. We'll buy one of those because we'll actually have enough use for it. Will it cost you more? Yes. We will pass that on, right? Looks like I can just barely make out 1, 2, 3, 4 bad cells out of the set of cells in that battery pack there, right? And I know which ones they are because they have a little QR code on them and I read them. And that's all been entered already, right? What I've got going on here, I'm sorry the picture is so bad, he sent it to me Facebook. Say, hey, you got a picture of that thing we did the other day? You'll see 2 white boxes here. This is a BMW. It's, I'm going to say around 2016, 2017. Right? That is the anti-theft module, that little box. Not much to it. This is it internally. I'm not sure if this is the used one or the original one that's on the bench right now. It is software protected. It is VIN locked. So according to BMW, it's also obsolete. So that car needs to go to the auto wreckers. It can no longer be repaired for software reasons. Security, partially. Again, we have NASTEF, we have Auto Authority, we have ways to deal with this should they care to. But what we're doing here is actually hooked directly on the memory chip. This is actually a key cloning tool that we're using. We have downloaded the chip to this tablet here. And I'm not sure if this is the original, but maybe it's the used one out of another car. We've cloned it to be the original. So you can beat this stuff. And the people that beat this stuff are your independent retail shops. It is not the dealer. BMW would never let their dealers do this. They want to sell a new BMW. Why the heck do you think they did it in the first place? Right? Oh, yes, for security reasons, for many other reasons than planned obsolescence, it's never that. And you even blame the car companies. It's us that wants a new car every 3-4 years. Right? I mean, we drove here in a 2010. Nothing wrong with it. Runs great. The work to be done for groups like yours, I think, is huge. and it's on 2 parts. There's regulation required. Somebody has to stop this. In Europe, they're stopping this. Bill 66 in Quebec, they're stopping this. You must supply parts to that vehicle for a reasonable amount of time, which I think they've come up with about 15 years in Quebec. Right? The means of repair information must be available. Oh, back to Tesla and hiding it, and now not hiding it. The other car companies scream bloody murder Tesla because you're going to force a law in Canada, right? And they don't like laws. Right? In the States, not all the states, but many of the states, there is a law, right to repair laws in many states, where that information has to be provided at reasonable cost. Reasonable cost is about $3,000 or $4,000 per year per automaker. That's what it works out to. Plus, you need their tool in many cases. Tesla's great. You can use any laptop. Others are that way too. But some you need to have their tool, or even there's just their interface. Their 25 or 2735 protocol tool in order to talk to these things. And what you're doing then is the scan tool is actually on their website, and you're just using it through your laptop. But so, you know, add another maybe 5,000 per car. So you can see how the cost of repair starts to add up, right? But at least it's repairable, which is better than it was 5-10 years ago, where, well, we relied on Ukrainians and Chinese people to hack this stuff for us. Right? Luckily, they were really good at it. It happens to the dealerships too. In my last level 4, which was just the course I just finished, Dodge Charger electric came into Northland Chrysler here in town. LFP battery. Are you familiar with LFP? You have a discharge rate. It's slow, but it's there. Self-discharge is what I'm referring to. It came in probably showing near 0%, which should be fine, because what the technicians at Dodge, because they're not EV technicians, wouldn't know is that battery underneath that BMS has another 10 or 15% reserve sitting there to keep it from going completely dead. Parked it on the lot for about 3 months, and it did go dead. I didn't stop by the school, so I could bring you a set of cells that I've lent to Doug from time to time, where I've blistered them up by causing it to go fully dead, right? Gas off. And that's what happened to this thing. So because they're not a EV certified dealership, I don't know how they got this dealer traded it or something like that. Stellantis washed their hands of it. No problem. $5,000 battery for a $48,000 car. I tried to buy it. Not interested. They're still trying to. I was like, I'm sure we can find a way. See what else I wanted to talk about. Yeah, so when I first started seeing VIN-locked modules, I was pretty upset. I was like, you know what? That's rude. Why should we be plugging up auto wreckers all this e-waste, right? For no other reason than you want to obsolete that car faster, right? It's not the only way they do it. Have you seen oil change cycles lately? Factory recommended oil change cycles? Oh, transmission service. Oh, don't do it. You don't need to anymore. Build for life. Life of what? The transmission, right? That's what it is, right? And then it's take a CV transmission. And when I told you wears out, you know why it wears out? Metal in the oil. If you change it, it'll last. So what does the car company say? Don't change it. You don't need to do that. You're only going to keep it 4 years. Oil change cycles. Back in the day, 5,000 kilometers, 3,000 miles, something like that was considered pretty good. You know, never heard anything. Yeah, we have better oil. We have tighter engines. Maybe we can go a little further. 8, maybe something like that. 16, 20, not working. I have never seen so many engine repairs. We have had to revise our level 2 curriculum because our students are now deep in engine repairs over and over and over again. Yeah, rings are carboning, and then they're not draining properly. Low tension rings to begin with. It's compounding. They were looking for that 0.1% of fuel economy savings, make the rings a little soft, a little less tension. Now a little more oil gets passed, and then it gets in the oil control rings. Well, we're using piston squirters because we've direct injected this thing. We need to cool the piston. Because we're running it, 25, 30 to 1. Okay? 14.7 is stoichio, so we're super lean. Well, I can't now run the oil back inside the piston like we used to do in the old days. We have to have it run all the way to the pin bore and have it drop out there. Well, as soon as you carbon that up, it can't do it anymore. Burning oil. And when it starts burning oil, the catalytic converter starts getting contaminated. The back pressure changes, the blow-by increases, but we've direct injected it. So now we're going to carbon the valves, and it's an endless cycle until engine failure. Or you could change your oil, right? That's an option. Right? I have a direct injected vehicle. I change the oil regularly, and it comes out looking horrible. Here's the other thing, variable valve timing on both camshafts. Cylinder deactivation systems. We're looking for tight. Cylinder deactivation annoys me. How much fuel are you burning when you're not on the throttle? Almost none. So turn off 4 cylinders. Almost none times almost none is almost none. It does nothing except cause problems. But all the systems in there create a valve train oiling system that is like an automatic transmission used to be. All sorts of neat little high tolerance valves, little light springs, and now we're not going to change the oil. Okay. Is it planned? I don't know. Maybe we could say, well, we're being green, we're not using as much oil. Or we're showing low cost of maintenance to our fleet customers. And again, the fleet customers, they bought in 160,000. You got to get rid of that truck. But it was $120,000. No matter, it's done. But yet, my truck's got 325 and it's doing fine. Yeah, I think there's an educational piece that gets missed. And I'm picking on ICE vehicles right now. But ICE had that OBD2 connector that I showed you. Yes, it had a lock. We're allowed through that lock in Canada as of this year. Electric cars don't need that. OBD2 is an emissions law. It is air care on the car. You see, in the old days, the government's paid for air care. Now you pay for it. It's in your car. Right? Just like evaporative emissions. When you fill your pump, we have evaporative emission systems in the car. They could be in the pump. Apparently, the oil companies won, the car companies lost. You're paying for it, right? Great. It's good for me. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy with hybrids. I think all the problems with an electric vehicle, with all the problems with a gas is awesome. Thanks. I'll take that. And no, we have zero problem repairing them. In fact, in the aftermarket, we're doing more than the dealers are. But ideally, people would keep them. You see, I kept my customers' cars on the road. 450,000 kilometers. My customers were wealthy. They had no problem paying my bill. They had a problem with breakdowns. And so what we did is kind of extreme maintenance. If we know the alternators aren't going to go 400 and the customer wants to go 400, we're changing it 200. Is there anything wrong with it? Don't know, don't care. It's getting a new one. Water pumps, fuel pumps, things like that. Could not have breakdowns, right? And you know what? To most people, it's a refrigerator at that point. Just want to drive it and don't want it to give me any trouble, right? That was our success formula. Do I want them getting obsoleted? Right? I'm against that entirely. I want this customer to keep it forever. Because I'll do some brake jobs on that thing. I'll do some suspension work. So what I see in EV vehicles is a car I could keep forever. There's 2 end bearings. That's it. That's my power to my engine rebuild is 2 bearings, right? But you know what they do? They put a resolver on there that's timed to the engine. If the coil fails in it, I need a new motor. I'm not allowed to replace it because of software, not because I couldn't, not because there's not a way. And I've been looking for a way. Leaf is one of them that does that. You have to encode motor to the powertrain computer, and that encode is literally the error in the encoder on the motor, which is kind of your camshaft sensor for the engine, tells it when to fire the next field. It annoys the heck out of me. I've been using a scope to determine when it's firing as compared to when the signal was, and trying to determine if I can find a way to time based off of this. Haven't come up with a method yet. Somebody will, right? In the meantime, why didn't they make it serviceable? It should be so easy as to go learn. Done. Right? They didn't make it serviceable because, well, they didn't want to. It's not in their interest. It's in the customer's interest, in your interest. It's in the environment's interest. Car companies, they don't make money saving on carbon. think that's about what I have for you today. Like I say, a little bit of a call to action. You need to support this right to repair legislation when you see it. This is what it's about. It's about not obsoleting these cars. Let's look to Quebec. Let's make that nationwide, right? Well, we can decode CAN bus.
But you can't if it's encrypted because it
But-
just looks like random noise, and that's what. a
Yeah,
lot of
so
them are.
there's encrypted CAN bus and there's CAN FD. Both of those are kind of difficult to deal with. CAN FD being flexible data rate CAN, instead of being 16-bit or 8-bit CAN 1 or 64-bit, it can be any of them. With the same speed, you can get more information down the line. I think CAN's a great thing. It's a known thing, right? I rarely need to do much with the actual code when it comes to repairs. Right? When you're modifying, when you're taking an old vehicle and converting it to EV or something, well, yeah, now you've got to deal with code. But for the most part, I'm using code to go, okay, so this one module is definitely messing the CAN signal. And if I use code, I can determine its ID. And that's a faster way to find it. You know, these are the ways I use it. The fact that they are all encrypted, I can see why they have to in a way, because we've connected our cars, right? And so I suppose it's a security threat, right? But as far as maintenance and repair goes, it's not been, hasn't been part of my life, too much detail, right? When I'm looking at CAN, I'm usually looking at it through the lens of why isn't it speaking? A module needs to have power, ground, and communication, right? The why isn't it speaking means I've hooked a scope up, looking at the data, seeing what I see. Can I decode it? If I can decode it, I have lookup charts so I can determine which module that is that's speaking. CAN is addressed, right? And it's got priorities. So, you know, for instance, if your electronic steering is talking to your ABS module, that's going to be all zeros because that's very high priority message. Whereas, you know, if you turn the power windows down, that's a very low priority message. We'll throw that in some other time and we'll just keep sending it until someone picks it up, right? But as far as actually having to play with the code, I haven't had too much. To some extent, it's the software engineers, not necessarily the car company ones, but working for other companies or illegally working that are doing the decoding for me, so they would have a problem. But for me, it hasn't. Part of my life.
And Jesse, I see you're online. Can you unmute if you got a question? I can't get the chat to work. Or raise your hand and you can send me an email and I can check my email. Any other questions in the room?
I think I hear you saying I should keep my 2007 Rabbit in the garage.
Yeah, you might as well.
Yeah. It was the interim
to
vehicle
this point.
between the time I got rid of the SOT and the EV. Anyway,
You know, Volkswagen. You know what? You own it, and it's not rotted out, I'm guessing. Even if it was, hey, I got guys that can fix that nowadays. You know,
no.
The reality is you can future-proof that car, right? I mean, what did you say? You have a Miata with an EV in it, right? I mean, how much money does one spend when a replacement Rabbit is 50 grand? Right? You know, you got some wiggle room. And then there's the environmental side of it. The embedded carbon's it. And is it good on fuel? Reasonably.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, reasonably good on fuel. And is it got some fairly high NOx emissions? Absolutely. That's smog. You know, that's not necessarily our global warming index. That's not the stuff that we're really having big problems with in the world right now. We do have problems locally. I always refer to NOx as a city problem. That's that orange haze you see across any city. And, you know, Los Angeles brought it to the forefront, right? Because there's like Prince George, they're down in the bottom. Pacific Ocean has that inflow every morning where it's a fog bank and there the air sits, right? And so, yeah, they had a problem that was visible. And when a person sees the problem, well, then they're willing to fix it. NOx emissions, we started dealing with those in the 70s. GR systems and things like that. The way you get rid of NOx is to cool the combustion chamber. That's horrible for fuel economy, but it is good for keeping NOx emissions down. So in other words, in order to keep those NOx emissions low, we've increased our carbon emissions. Fuel. There's no winning when it comes to cars. And I would say EV is also not winning at this point. It has the potential. Imagine an EV you could keep fixing. Scout has me excited because Scout's doing something that Hyundai Kia did when they first came to North America. They gave us all their information, scan tools, anything we needed. Just learn to fix our cars. So because they know that you guys all ask us what to buy. And we'll say, buy a Chevy because I know it. Well, if I can get parts for Hyundai, have software and information, I can fix your Hyundai. I'm happy to buy a Hyundai, right? Well, Scout's doing the same thing. They love the idea of no dealer. You know, they see that just like Tesla saw that as a potential. There's problems with that. Who services it? They're going to the independents, starting to make deals with them as far as who's going to be servicing these things. So you could literally have anybody, your local mechanic, can look after them. Kind of the way the car companies started back in the teens. You just went to the local shops. Whoever was, you know, blacksmithing on wagons and taught them to fix the cars, right? It's kind of coming back around again. Now, if they go one further, make that thing repairable, make it with software that's accessible, and that'd be awesome. Because you know what? The cheaper it is to drive, the more people drive. Right? It's human nature. We want to travel. We want to see things, you know? It's not 1850s where, you know, your world was 100 square kilometers. And I don't think that's ever going to change. We don't need to be throwing away $100,000 cars every 4 or 5 years. And I think that's a piece of the environmental movement that I'm not seeing very loud, or maybe because I'm looking for it to be louder, that I wish it was louder. That these things should be fixed. R, right? All your R's, repair is a big one. Thing is super expensive. You should consider that it's built in, right? You know, you can reuse too. You know, you're driving a car that was built with as an ICE, right? Future-proofed it in a way.
So I have a 2016 Leaf, and I bought Leaf Spy, used OBD2 with Bluetooth. Is that outside of what's normally locked, or is...
No, 2016, nothing was locked. Yeah, they didn't start locking most car companies, I would say, around 2019. A few. By 2020, more than half, I would say, and now just about all of them. And so it's not that you wouldn't be able to do that in the future. It's that you would have to sign up and pay auto authority, and your tool, whatever you're using, your Leaf Spy, would have to be on their list of approved tools. For security reasons, and real security reasons. Cars have never been easier to steal. Well, you know, you got push button starts, all these electronics. Electronics are great. My students are of the age that the people stealing these cars are. They're native to this. They have no problem downloading an app to start a new truck, right? Or relay attacks by just simply sending the signal from the fob inside somebody's house to the vehicle. It's easy. Whereas busting ignition, getting hands on, that's a lot harder for this next generation of car thief, apparently. Because so your old-fashioned, was it a Rabbit or Jetta? Yeah, that's going to be way harder for them to steal. They won't know the The app is not on the dark web for that. And it probably has a manual transmission too, so you know, that there's not, that's another millennial anti-theft device, right? Yeah. So yeah, that one, no, but if you buy a new Leaf, that system is not going to work.
Is it federal legislation generally, or is it provincial? Like who?
Well,
who-
I mean,
who needs to get the message to?
it's Transport Canada, right? So really, Motor Vehicle Act is federal, but then we have provincial laws as well. I think federally, and it's not just cars, cell phones. The other day, my dryer, I think it was the dryer. Was it the dryer? I can't. One of the two of them quit working, and gave me an error code. Okay, well, this is no big deal. I'll look it up. Oh, okay. Well, 50% of the time they change the human interface module, and 50% of the time they change the motor driver module. Oh, it's got some sort of communication. Well, I'll grab my scope. We have LIN bus. This is a common car communication. Okay. Turned out it was just terminal fretting, corrosion on the pins. All better, right? But yeah, so your appliances, you know, in your house, they're all software driven. Your lawnmower, I don't know, everything we work with nowadays has repairability issues because nobody wants to keep anything. Nobody wants to fix anything. Just throw it out, get another one, fill the landfills. Right? You see stuff leaving the Canadian Tires and the Walmarts, and it feels like they're hauling it from there to the landfill. Isn't it? Like that's how it feels to me sometimes because I'm a repairer. I fix things, right? And I've learned that things are being built more and more difficult to repair. And luckily, these young kids we're teaching, they're figuring them out. They're finding ways where they're not supposed to be ways, right? But we can't just rely on that. We should not be doing this as a society, right? And electric cars are just as responsible, if not more, because there's no emissions law. Now they can do whatever they want. The only way in the past was that OBD2 connector. Don't have to have that on an EV. No rules that say it has to be there. Tesla still has one, but that's just for the body computer. It's not for the powertrain computer. And backed by Microsoft. Right? So, you know, we're dealing with, you know, oligarchs. It's really, you know, and they kind of like it this way. But I think as a society, like I said, some jurisdictions in Europe, some states, Quebec, said enough's enough. And Quebec's, is it 29? I think it is. I wrote it down because I can never, Bill 29, if you want to look it up. It's not just cars, it's everything, right? Yeah. So I think, you know, as we think about transition, let's not forget, you know, fix this stuff. Not just throw them away. Because human nature is to want the new shiny thing. You're fighting that already. And old Sloan there 100 years ago figured that one out. Since then, they've perfected it. We're always being sold to. And unfortunately, because it's so prevalent, there's fewer and fewer people that want to fix things. Thankfully, cars are expensive. If they were cheap, we'd just throw them out like cell phones.
Any other questions from the room? No. Kush, you can end the recording. And Jesse, one last try.
No questions, thank you.
I remember Herbie, the 60s.
Autonomous car. Thanks, guys. I think, you know, groups like this, you guys have a real role to play.
So are you saying that you're able to put a heater into my Leaf battery now?
If only you could do it. It's very difficult. Again,